before there were samurai, before swords, armor, and honor codes, before the quiet image of a warrior sitting beneath falling cherry blossoms. Japan was a very different place. Tonight, we are going far back in time, to a Japan without famous warriors, without shoguns, without the word samurai even existing. So, get comfortable, slow your breathing, and let's quietly step into the world before the samurai were born. Long ago, Japan was not a united country. It was a collection of islands filled with forests, mountains, rivers, and small communities trying their best to survive. People lived close to the land. They farmed rice, they fished, they hunted, they followed the seasons very carefully, because food was never guaranteed. There were no big cities, like Tokyo. No bullet trains, no convenience stores open all night. A truly dangerous time. Life moved slowly. Days were shaped by sunlight, weather, and hard work. And in this early Japan, power did not belong to warriors. It belonged to families. Clans. These clans were large family groups, connected by blood, marriage, and shared ancestors. Each clan controlled land, water, and people. The most powerful clans claimed that their ancestors were gods or spirits. This made arguing with them difficult. At the top was the emperor. But early emperors were not battlefield commanders. They were sacred figures, seen as divine. The emperor performed rituals. He prayed to the gods. He kept harmony between heaven and earth. Actual fighting, that was someone else's problem. As time passed, Japan began to change. Rice farming improved. Villages grew larger. Land became more valuable. And when land becomes valuable, people start arguing about it. Quietly at first, then not so quietly. Disputes broke out between clans. Borders were unclear. Old agreements were misremembered. And suddenly, protecting land mattered more than praying over it. At first, fighting was informal. Farmers picked up tools. Clans gathered men when trouble appeared. Battles were short, messy, and very personal. There were no professional soldiers, no standing armies. If you worked the fields on Monday, you might fight your neighbor on Tuesday, and be back planting rice on Wednesday, hoping everyone forgot about it. But this system did not last, because conflicts kept growing. Around this time, Japan started looking outward. Across the sea were powerful neighbors, China and Korea. These civilizations had writing systems, laws, organized armies, and professional soldiers. Japan watched carefully, and like a student copying notes from a smarter classmate, Japan began to borrow ideas. Writing came first, then systems of government, then military knowledge, and slowly, Japan began to organize itself in new ways. With new systems came new problems. Central government tried to control distant lands, but Japan's geography made this hard. Mountains separated regions. Roads were poor. Messages traveled slowly. Local leaders began acting independently. They collected taxes. They settled disputes. They protected villages, and they needed protection. Because bandits existed, rival clans existed, and nature itself could be brutal. Floods, famines, earthquakes. Life was already hard. Violence made it worse. So wealthy landowners began hiring guards. At first, these guards were simple fighters. Strong men, skilled hunters, experienced farmers who knew how to defend themselves. They were not elite, they were practical. They protected rice fields, escorted goods, kept order. And over time these guards became more important than the landowners themselves. Because when danger came, ideas and prayers were not enough. You needed someone who knew how to fight. Meanwhile, the imperial court lived far away from this reality. In the capital, nobles wrote poetry. They dressed in elegant robes. They held refined ceremonies. They believed true power came from culture, not violence. And for a while, that worked. But the farther you moved from the capital, the weaker the court became. Local power filled the gap. And violence slowly became a profession. By the late Heian period, Japan had a clear divide. On one side, court nobles, educated, artistic, politically powerful, on paper. On the other side, rural fighters, rough, practical, physically powerful in reality. These fighters were not yet called samurai, but they were becoming something new. These early warriors lived hard lives. They trained constantly, not in formal schools, but through experience. They rode horses, they used bows, they learned to survive in forests and mountains. Their lives were not glamorous. They slept outdoors. They endured hunger. They accepted death as a real possibility. And slowly, a warrior identity began to form, not from philosophy, not from honor codes, but from necessity. Religion also played a role. Early Japanese beliefs focused on nature, spirits, rivers, trees, mountains. Later, Buddhism arrived from the mainland. Buddhism taught impermanence, that everything changes, that life and death are part of the same flow. For fighters, this was powerful. If death is natural, fear loses some of its grip. And that idea would later shape the warrior mindset deeply. At this stage, loyalty was flexible. Warriors served whoever paid or protected them. Alliances shifted easily. There was no strict moral code yet. Survival came first. Honor would come later. Much later, as conflicts increased, clans began competing openly. Small fights became organized battles. And some families proved better at war than others. Names like Minamoto and Taira began to matter. These clans understood something important. Power did not come from noble titles. It came from force. And force needed professionals. The emperor still ruled in theory. But in practice, distant provinces listened to local warriors. The court depended on these fighters for protection. Ironically, the very people hired to defend the system would one day replace it. History loves that kind of irony. By the end of this era, Japan stood at a crossroads. Old traditions still existed, but they were weakening. A new class was rising, still unnamed, still unorganized, but ready. They were men of the land, men of war, men who would soon shape the fate of the entire country. And so, the stage was set. The world before the samurai was fading. The quiet age of courtly rule was ending. And from the fields, forests, and battle scars of early Japan, the samurai were about to be born. But that is a story for the next chapter. So for now, rest. Let the past drift gently away. And when you're ready, we will continue into the age of warriors. By the time the old world began to fade, something new was quietly forming. It did not arrive with trumpets. There was no official announcement. No one stood up and said, "Congratulations, you are now a samurai." Instead, the samurai were born slowly, naturally, almost by accident. And like many powerful things in history, they began as a solution to a problem. As Japan moved deeper into the Heian period, the distance between the capital and the countryside grew wider. In the capital, nobles lived gentle lives. They wrote poems about falling leaves. They debated which color robe best matched the season. Out in the provinces, life was less poetic. Landowners faced constant threats, bandits, rival clans, disputes over rice fields and water rights, and the imperial government was far away, very far away. If trouble came, help might arrive. Eventually, maybe. So landowners stopped waiting. They hired their own protection. These protectors were not knights or soldiers in shining armor. They were practical people, strong farmers, skilled hunters, men who knew the land well. They carried bows, they rode horses, they guarded storehouses and villages. At first, they were just guards. But guards who fight often get very good at fighting. Over time, these fighters became specialists. They trained more, they fought more, they survived more, and survival, as always, creates experience. Some families began producing warriors generation after generation. Fathers trained sons, uncles trained nephews. Skills were passed down quietly. This was not an army, it was a lifestyle. Around this time, a new word began to appear. Samurai. The word came from an older verb meaning to serve. Not to rule, not to command, to serve. This is important. Early samurai did not see themselves as heroes or conquerors. They were servants. They served landowners. They served clan leaders. They served whoever offered protection, payment, or loyalty in return. Service shaped their identity. A samurai's job was not just to fight. It was to protect land. To enforce decisions, to keep order. If a village was attacked, the samurai responded. If a dispute became violent, the samurai handled it. They were problem solvers, very sharp problem solvers. Unlike court nobles, samurai lived rough lives. They did not wear silk robes. They did not attend elegant gatherings. They slept lightly. They stayed alert. Weapons were always close, because danger did not send invitations. Training began early. Young boys learned to ride horses almost as soon as they could walk. They practiced archery daily. They learned endurance before elegance. There were no formal schools yet. Life itself was the teacher. Mistakes were painful, sometimes fatal. Lessons were learned quickly. The bow was the most important weapon. Early samurai were mounted archers, not swordsmen. Battles often began at a distance. Horseback archery was deadly and respected. The sword existed, but it was secondary. It was a backup, a last resort. The famous katana would come later. For now, arrows ruled the battlefield. Samurai armor was simple. It was designed for movement, not beauty. Leather, iron plates, laced together. Enough protection to survive, enough flexibility to fight. Comfort was not a priority. Survival was. As samurai became more important, their status began to rise. Landowners depended on them. Clan leaders trusted them, and trust is power. Slowly, samurai stopped being just hired muscle. They became decision makers. The imperial court noticed this shift. At first, they ignored it. After all, warriors were considered uncultured. They lacked education. They lacked refinement. But ignoring reality rarely ends well. As conflicts grew larger, nobles began relying on samurai clans for protection. Court politics became dangerous. Assassinations happened. Power struggles intensified. And when words failed, weapons spoke. Samurai began serving nobles directly. They guarded estates. They enforced authority. And in return, they received land, titles, and influence. This changed everything, because land meant independence. A samurai with land no longer depended entirely on wages. He could support followers, and followers meant power. Soon, samurai families formed their own networks. Loyalty flowed upward and downward. A warrior served a lord. That lord served someone above him. At the top were powerful clans. Below them, layers of warriors. This structure would later define feudal Japan, but for now, it was still forming. Morality at this stage was flexible. There was no Bushidō yet, no written code of honor. Samurai were expected to be loyal. But loyalty could change. If a lord failed to protect his warriors, they might leave. If another offered better land or safety, loyalty followed opportunity. This was not betrayal, it was survival. Religion continued shaping warrior thinking. Zen Buddhism spread quietly among fighters. Zen emphasized discipline, focus. Acceptance of death. For people who faced death often, this philosophy made sense. Fear clouds the mind. Calm sharpens it. A calm warrior lives longer. Death was not glorified. It was accepted. This acceptance gave samurai an advantage. They fought with focus, not panic. And panic, as history shows, loses battles. As samurai gained influence, conflicts between major clans increased. Two families would rise above the rest, the Taira clan and the Minamoto clan. They served the imperial court. But they also competed with each other. Tension built slowly, quietly, like distant thunder. By now, the emperor's role had changed. He was still sacred. He was still respected, but he no longer controlled the battlefield. Real power rested with those who commanded warriors. And warriors followed warriors. The idea of a military ruler began to take shape. Someone who ruled not by bloodline alone, but by strength, leadership, and loyalty. The samurai were no longer background figures. They were central to Japan's future. By the end of this chapter in history, the samurai class was fully born, not yet polished, not yet romanticized, but real. They were professionals. They were disciplined. They were powerful. And they were about to reshape Japan completely. In the next chapter, everything accelerates. Clans collide. Wars erupt. And the samurai step fully into history's spotlight. But for now, let the sound of hoofs fade. Let the bowstrings relax. Let the warriors rest, because the age of samurai power is only just beginning. When people imagine samurai life, they often picture dramatic duels, flashing swords, and heroic last stands. But most of a samurai's life looked nothing like that. In truth, an early samurai spent far more time waiting than fighting. Waiting for orders, waiting for trouble, waiting for the seasons to change. So tonight, let's slow down and step into an ordinary day in the life of an early samurai. No battles, no legends, just life. The day began early, very early. Before the sun fully rose, the samurai was already awake. Not because he wanted to be, but because discipline demanded it. Sleeping late was not admired. It suggested laziness, and laziness could get you killed. Mornings were quiet. Mist often hung low over the fields. Birds were louder than people. The samurai checked his weapons first. Bow, arrows, sword. Not for beauty, for function. Everything had to work. Because, if something failed later, there would be no second chance. Breakfast was simple. Rice, maybe vegetables, sometimes fish. Nothing fancy. A samurai did not eat for pleasure. He ate for strength. Too much food made the body slow. Too little made it weak. Balance mattered. Training followed. Every day, no exceptions. Even in rain. Even in cold. Especially in cold. Muscles needed to remember movement without thought. Archery practice came first. Targets were simple. Sometimes just marks on trees. Accuracy mattered more than speed. A calm shot beats a fast one. Horse training followed. Early samurai were expected to fight on horseback. That meant riding for hours. Learning control, learning trust. That meant riding for hours. Learning control, learning trust. It did not trust its rider was dangerous, so they trained together. Day after day. Sword practice came later, not the dramatic kind. A warrior without control of his horse was useless, and a horse taught basic movements, footwork, grip, again and again. Early swords were tools, not symbols. They were heavy, practical, unforgiving. Mistakes hurt. Between training sessions, the samurai worked. Yes, worked. Early samurai were not full-time warriors in the way people imagine. Sacred. Many farmed their own land, managed estates, collected taxes. They knew how rice grew. They knew how hard survival could be. This connection to the land shaped their mindset. War was not glorious. It was disruptive. Afternoons were often spent guarding, watching roads, protecting storehouses, escorting travelers. Most days, nothing happened, which was good. A quiet day meant success. But the samurai could never relax fully, because danger rarely announced itself. Clothing was practical. Layers of fabric, easy to move in armor, was not worn all day. That would be exhausting. Armor was for battle. Everyday life required flexibility. Comfort mattered, but only a little. Social life existed, but it was limited. Samurai families lived modestly. They respected hierarchy. You knew your place, you knew who you served, and you knew the consequences of forgetting that. Children of samurai families grew up differently. From a young age, boys were taught discipline. Crying was discouraged. Not because emotions were bad, but because control was valued. Girls were also trained, not always as fighters, but as strong household leaders. They managed estates, handled finances, defended homes when needed. Samurai women were far from powerless. Education mattered. Not everyone could read, but samurai were encouraged to learn. Reading contracts, understanding orders, keeping records. Illiteracy was weakness. Knowledge was another weapon. Religion was woven into daily life. Shrines were visited regularly. Prayers were offered before journeys. Not for victory, for balance, for calm. Buddhism influenced daily routines. Meditation was practiced quietly, sometimes just a few minutes of stillness, breathing, awareness, learning to empty the mind. A distracted warrior was a dead one. Death was always present. Not spoken about dramatically, just understood. Illness could strike. Illness could strike. Accidents happened. Violence was never far away. Samurai learned not to fear death, not because they wanted to die, but because fear clouds judgment, and judgment keeps you alive. Honor, at this stage, was personal. There was no formal code yet. A samurai's reputation mattered. If you were known as unreliable, no one trusted you. If you broke loyalty to Isley, doors closed. Honor was practical. It was social survival. Loyalty was expected, but not blind. A good lord protected his warriors. He provided land, food, and security. A bad lord lost followers. Samurai were not slaves. They were professionals. Evenings were calm. Weapons were cleaned. Armor repaired. Small details mattered. A loose strap today could mean death tomorrow. Meals were quiet. Families ate together when possible. Stories were shared. Warnings passed down. Don't cross that road at night. Watch that neighbor. Stay alert during harvest season. Experience was shared wisdom. Night brought silence. The samurai slept lightly. Weapons nearby. Mind alert, because danger often came in darkness. Despite the hardship, there were moments of peace. Watching the sunset. Listening to wind in the trees. Sharing a laugh. Yes, samurai laughed. They joked. They complained. They were human. This is important. Samurai were not emotionless machines. They felt fear, love, doubt. What made them different was discipline. They acted despite emotion. Over years, this lifestyle shaped the samurai. Patience, endurance, awareness. These qualities became their strength, not flashy heroics, but quiet consistency. As generations passed, this way of life hardened. Skills improved, networks expanded, samurai families grew stronger, and the country moved closer to conflict. Because when trained fighters exist in large numbers, history rarely stays calm. In the next chapter, the samurai step onto a larger stage. Wars between clans erupt, power shifts dramatically, and Japan begins to change forever. But for now, let the campfires fade. Let the horses rest. Let the warriors sleep. Tomorrow will come soon enough. For a long time, Japan lived with two centers of power. One was beautiful, quiet, refined. The other was practical, loud when needed and very real. The emperor still sat on the throne. Sacred, respected, but far from the sound of battle. And while poems were written in the capital, the countryside burned. The problem was simple. Japan had warriors everywhere, but no single warrior leader. Clans protected land. Samurai served lords. Lords served nobles. It was a chain, and chains, when pulled too hard, tend to snap. The imperial court depended on warrior clans to keep order. But those same clans grew stronger with every conflict. More land. More followers. More weapons. Power has a habit of noticing itself. And once it does, it rarely goes back to sleep. Two clans stood above the rest. The Taira clan and the Minamoto clan. They were not just warriors. They were political players. They married into noble families. They held court positions. They collected wealth. And, slowly, quietly, they turned influence into control. At first, both clans claimed loyalty to the emperor. They fought in his name. They protected the court. But loyalty began to feel flexible. When you command armies, it is easy to forget who is supposed to be in charge. Tensions grew, whispers in court, rivalries behind polite smiles. And then came open conflict, not a sudden explosion. More like a slow crack, forming in stone. The Genpei War began. It was a long, brutal struggle between the Taira and Minamoto clans. Battles spread across the country. Samurai fought samurai. Family fought family. This was not heroic. It was exhausting. The old rules no longer mattered. Court titles did not stop arrows. Poetry did not block swords. Victory belonged to those who planned better, moved faster, and adapted. And the Minamoto adapted well. After years of fighting, the Taira were defeated. Their power collapsed. Some fled. Some were killed. And Japan changed forever. The Minamoto leader, Minamoto no Yoritomo, did something new. Something bold. He did not try to become emperor. That would have broken tradition. Instead, he created a new role, a military ruler. The shogun. The word shogun meant something like commander of the military. Simple, direct, very samurai. Yoritomo ruled from afar, in Kamakura. Not from the imperial capital. This mattered. Power had physically moved. The emperor still existed, still sacred, still honored. But real authority now rested with the shogun, the one who controlled the warriors, and the warriors listened. This was not a loud revolution. There were no crowds cheering. Most people barely noticed at first. Life continued, rice was planted, taxes were paid, but the system underneath had shifted. The shogunate created order. Samurai were organized. Land was assigned. Loyalty became formal. This was no longer survival-based service. This was structured power. Samurai now served the shogun through layers of loyalty: direct vassals, subordinates, local leaders, a pyramid of authority, clear, efficient, and very difficult to challenge. The court nobles still held cultural influence. They set fashion, they shaped rituals, but they no longer commanded armies, and armies decide history. Under the shogunate, samurai status became official. They were no longer just hired fighters, they were a recognized class, with privileges and responsibilities. Discipline increased. Loyalty mattered more. Disobedience had consequences. This was not romantic. It was administrative. Power needs paperwork. Even in feudal Japan, peace followed. For a while, the shogunate brought stability. Roads were safer. Trade improved. Samurai settled into roles as governors, judges, and enforcers, not always fighters. Some samurai missed war. Conflict had defined them. Peace felt strange. But peace does not ask permission. It arrives when swords grow tired. Still, tension remained. Not everyone accepted the new system. Some nobles resented losing power. Some warriors wanted more. Power always creates resistance. But the idea of the shogun had taken root. Military leadership was now separate from sacred authority, and this separation would shape Japan for centuries. The samurai had won not just battles, but relevance. They were now the backbone of government. And yet, this new power came with pressure. Expectations rose. Failures mattered more. A samurai now represented order itself. In the quiet nights of Kamikura, decisions were made. Land granted. Loyalty rewarded. Rebellion punished. The age of warrior rule had begun, but peace is fragile. And power attracts challengers. The shogunate would not last forever. No more system does. In the next chapter, we enter the heart of samurai philosophy. Honor, duty, the ideas that shaped their minds, the code that would later be called Bushidō. But for now, let the banners fall still. Let the battlefields rest. The warriors are no longer just fighters. They are rulers, and history has noticed. By now, the samurai were no longer just fighters. They were officials, landholders, enforcers of order. And with power came a problem. How do you control people who carry weapons for a living? No ancient samurai meeting voted on it. Bushidō grew slowly. Like a tree, roots first, branches later. The word Bushidō means the way of the warrior, not the rules, not the instructions. The way, a path, something you walk every day, sometimes well, sometimes badly. Early samurai already lived by discipline. Bushidō simply gave that discipline meaning. It told warriors who they were supposed to be, not just what they were supposed to do, and that mattered. Bushidō was built from several influences. Think of it like a recipe. Take a little Buddhism. Add Confucian ideas. Mix in local traditions. Stir slowly. Very slowly. From Buddhism, samurai learned acceptance. Life is temporary. Everything changes. Death is part of the flow. This helped warriors face danger without panic. If death is natural, fear loses its power, and a calm warrior survives longer. From Zen Buddhism, samurai learned focus. Clear the mind. Be present. Do not overthink. Zen taught that hesitation creates mistakes. In battle, hesitation kills. Zen also taught silence. And silence, surprisingly, is very powerful. From Confucianism, samurai learned duty, loyalty to one's lord, respect for hierarchy, order over chaos. Everyone had a role, and peace depended on people staying in their place. This idea shaped samurai behavior deeply. But Bushidō was not only about obedience. It was also about character. A samurai was expected to be honest, brave, self-controlled, not perfect, just disciplined. Courage was important, but not reckless courage. Running into danger blindly was foolish. Bushidō respected calm bravery. the kind that moves forward quietly. Honor mattered. But not the dramatic kind shown in movies. Honor was reputation. If you lied, people remembered. If you betrayed trust, people talked. A samurai without honor lost respect. And without respect, he lost everything. Loyalty was central. A samurai served his lord fully. But loyalty was not just emotional. It was practical. A loyal warrior received protection. Land, stability, Bushidō reinforced this bond. Self-control was admired. Anger was seen as weakness. A samurai who lost his temper lost his clarity, and clarity keeps you alive. Bushidō also valued simplicity. Too much luxury softened the spirit. Comfort made warriors slow, so modest living was encouraged, not because pleasure was evil, but because dependence on pleasure made people weak. Humor existed too. Yes, even samurai joked, but humor was quiet, dry, often about hardship. Laughing at difficulty made it easier to endure. Over time, Bushidō shaped behavior beyond battle. Samurai were expected to act with dignity. In speech, in movement, in daily life. How you walked mattered. How you spoke mattered, because everything reflected your discipline. Bushidō did not forbid fear. Fear was human, but it taught warriors not to be ruled by it. Fear acknowledged, then set aside, like a thought drifting past during meditation. As peace periods increased, Bushidō became more important. When warriors are not fighting, they need identity. Bushidō gave them that. It reminded them who they were, even without war. Bushidō also created pressure. A samurai who failed felt deep shame. Mistakes were not easily forgiven. Expectations were heavy. This is where the darker side appears. Seppuku ritual suicide is often linked to Bushidō, but in early times, it was rare. It was not expected for small failures. Movies exaggerate this greatly. Real samurai preferred to live. Living allowed service. Dead men served no one. Over time, however, social pressure grew. Honor became public. Shame became unbearable for some. Bushidō meant to guide, sometimes crushed. This is an important truth. Bushidō was not perfect. It was human. It reflected strengths and flaws, discipline and rigidity, loyalty and pressure, calm and sacrifice. Most samurai tried their best. They failed. They learned. They continued. Bushidō was not about being flawless. It was about striving. As generations passed, Bushidō spread through samurai families. Fathers taught sons. Stories were shared. Examples mattered more than rules. Children learned by watching. Bushidō also helped unify the samurai class. Different clans, different regions, but shared values. This made large systems possible. Shogunates rely on shared beliefs. By now, the samurai were no longer just warriors with weapons. They were warriors with identity, with philosophy, with expectations. But ideas alone do not shape history. Tools matter too. Weapons, armor, the physical side of being a samurai. In the next chapter, we slow down and examine the tools of the warrior. The sword, the bow, the armor, not as legends, but as real objects, crafted by human hands. For now, let the mind rest. Let thoughts drift. The way of the warrior is quiet tonight. Battles are often remembered as loud, clashing steel, shouting warriors, chaos everywhere. But for a samurai, battle often began in silence. Very deep silence. The kind where you hear your own breathing. The kind where time feels slower than usual. Oh, tonight, let's step onto the battlefield. Calmly. Before a battle, there was waiting. Sometimes hours, sometimes days. Samurai camps were quiet places. Weapons were checked again and again. Armor straps tightened. Helmets adjusted, not because they were nervous. Because preparation brought calm. Talking was minimal. Jokes existed, yes. But softly. No one wanted to tempt fate. And besides, shouting does not improve swordsmanship. Commanders studied the land. Hills, rivers, forests. Terrain mattered more than bravery. A clever position could win a battle before it began. Samurai learned this early. When armies faced each other, there was often distance. Archers prepared first. Bows were raised. Breathing slowed. This was not chaos. This was control. Early battles followed rituals. Names were sometimes announced. Challengers issued. This was not politeness. It was reputation. Killing a famous warrior meant something. Arrows flew, not all at once. Measured. Careful. Each shot counted. Running out of arrows too soon was embarrassing. And deadly. As distance closed, formations tightened, foot soldiers moved forward. Spears lowered. This is where things became less poetic and more dangerous. Samurai did not charge wildly. That was for people who wanted short careers. They advanced steadily. Step by step, trusting, training. Fear was present. Always. But fear was controlled. A warrior who panicked endangered everyone around him. So samurai focused on breathing. On movement. On the next step, close combat was brutal. Quick, unforgiving. There were no long duels, no dramatic speeches, just fast decisions. Mistakes ended lives. Swords were drawn. Not gracefully, efficiently. The goal was not beauty, it was survival. Blood was real. Exhaustion was real. Battle was not romantic, it was tiring. Heavy armor. Adrenaline. Noise. Fighting even a short time felt endless. Commanders watched closely. Signals were given. Flags moved. Drums sounded. Communication mattered. Confusion lost battles. Retreat was not shameful. Knowing when to withdraw saved lives. Bushidō did not demand pointless death. Living to fight again mattered. Victory often came quietly. Not with cheers, with relief. Survivors checked themselves. Checked friends, checked equipment. The battlefield, after combat, was still uncomfortably still. Samurai were trained to move on. Emotion came later, if at all. Not all battles were large. Many were small clashes. Ambushes, raids, night attacks. These required patience and stealth. Night battles were terrifying. Visibility was low. Sounds felt closer. Every shadow moved. Samurai learned to trust instincts. Weather affected everything. Rain soaked armor. Mud slowed movement. Cold stiffened hands. Nature was an enemy too. Leadership mattered more than numbers. A calm leader kept warriors focused. A panicked leader lost everything. Samurai respected steady commanders. Personal skill mattered. But teamwork mattered more. Lone heroes did not win wars. Cooperation did. After battle, rituals followed. Weapons cleaned. Armor repaired. Prayers offered, not always for victory. Often for the fallen. War left marks. Physical scars, mental ones too, but samurai rarely spoke of this. Silence was easier. Experience shaped warriors. Veterans moved differently, watched differently. Young warriors learned by observing. As wars continued, tactics improved. Formations evolved. Weapons adapted. Samurai learned from mistakes. History is a harsh teacher. Battle hardened the samurai. But it also changed them. Some became colder, some wiser, some simply tired. Victory brought reward. Land, status, influence. Defeat brought loss. Everything could change in one battle. This uncertainty shaped samurai thinking. Impermanence was not theory, it was lived reality. War did not last forever. Periods of peace followed, but memory remained. The body remembers danger, even when the world is quiet. Samurai carried battle inside them, even when swords rested. In the next chapter, we move inward away from noise, into the mind of the warrior Zen. Meditation, silence. The calm that made battle possible. For now, let the battlefield fade. Let the night return. The warriors rest. By now, the samurai were more than fighters. They were trained, disciplined, and organized. They knew strategy. They knew weapons. They knew how to survive on the battlefield. But strength of body alone was not enough. A samurai needed strength of mind. Focus.com/awareness. And that's where Zen Buddhism quietly entered their lives. Zen did not arrive with fanfare. No one knocked on a samurai's door and said, meditate or perish. It came slowly, through teachers, temples, and travelers. Through quiet teachings in monasteries, Zen is simple. Meditation, awareness of the present moment, acceptance of life and death. Sounds easy, but it is not. A samurai practicing Zen learns to sit still, hours of stillness. Breathing slow, mind empty, yet alert. At first, the body protests. Legs ache, back hurts, thoughts wander, but gradually, calm grows, breathing slows, awareness sharpens. A calm mind makes faster decisions. It sees danger sooner. It notices the smallest changes. Zen teaches impermanence. Everything changes. Life is temporary. Death is natural. For warriors, this was invaluable. Death is not a distant idea. It is always nearby. Acknowledging this reduces fear. A fearless warrior is not reckless. He is focused, present, alive in every moment. Zen is also about simplicity. Do not overcomplicate life. Do not be distracted by luxury. Focus on essentials. This influenced how samurai lived. Clothes, weapons, movements, words. A samurai did not fidget or waste energy. Even small actions mattered. Brushing armor, adjusting the bow, cleaning a sword. These routines were meditative. Each motion precise, each motion calm. Breathing is key. Zen teaches the warrior to breathe slowly, evenly, fully, a calm breath steadying the mind, the body, and the heart. The heart in battle. This made a difference. A samurai could act while others panicked, react calmly when chaos erupted. See opportunities invisible to the fearful. Meditation was not always formal. It could be walking slowly through the garden, watching wind ripple through bamboo, listening to distant birds. Even small moments trained the mind. Even quiet observation sharpened awareness. A samurai who could focus in calm could also focus in combat. Zen also taught patience. The mind learned to wait, to observe, to act at the right moment. This patience made samurai excellent strategists. They did not rush attacks. They did not overcommit. They waited, calculated, moved. Silence was part of Zen. Silence is not empty. It is attentive. It is listening. It is noticing the things others ignore. A quiet samurai could sense danger approaching. He could hear subtle movements. He could react before being seen. This connection between calmness and combat cannot be overstated. Zen shaped not only the body but the mind. It allowed warriors to act deliberately, even under extreme stress. Some samurai became lifelong students of Zen. They spent hours in monasteries. They learned calligraphy. They painted. They wrote poetry. Not because it was easy, because it trained discipline, focus, calmness, awareness. Art became meditation. Discipline extended beyond the battlefield. Even humor was affected by Zen. Let the candle fade. Let the wind move through the trees. Let the warrior rest. The mind is ready. The body is ready. The night is ready. After centuries of war, something unexpected happened. Japan became peaceful. Really peaceful. The Sengoku period ended. Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi had laid the groundwork. And finally, Tokugawa Ieyasu completed the unification. A new era began, the Tokugawa shogunate. A long peace, called the Edo period, would last more than 250 years. For samurai, this was complicated. They had trained their whole lives for battle, for strategy, for survival. And suddenly, there was no war. Imagine a warrior used to constant danger, sudden attacks, and battlefield chaos. Now imagine being told, relax, the country is calm. It must have been strange, but peace did not mean the samurai were idle. Their role shifted, from warriors to administrators, from fighters to bureaucrats. Samurai became government officials, tax collectors, local enforcers. They managed the states, oversaw villages, maintained order. The sword was still carried, not for battle, but as a symbol, a reminder of their authority. Daily life became structured. Samurai woke early, practiced martial arts, still important, even if rarely used, maintained weapons and armor, studied reading, writing, and calligraphy. Education became a key part of samurai life. Bushido adapted to honor, loyalty, discipline, all still important, but the emphasis shifted. Samurai now measured success not only by skill in battle, but by competence in governance, etiquette, and scholarship. A disciplined mind ruled the land as effectively as a disciplined blade defended it. Living in peace also meant lifestyle changes. Samurai estates became centers of administration. Homes were organized. Ceremonies were observed. Gardens were maintained meticulously. Even leisure became structured. Tea ceremonies, poetry, calligraphy, martial arts practice, all served to cultivate patience, focus, and dignity. Yet not all samurai adapted gracefully. Some missed the battlefield. Some struggled with bureaucratic duties. Some became frustrated with restrictions. This period required patience, the kind that is hard for a warrior used to action. Hierarchy became more rigid. Movement between classes was restricted. Samurai were officially the ruling class. Farmers, artisans, and merchants were clearly separated. This stability ensured peace, but it also reinforced social expectations. Weapons were still symbols. The katana remained central. The wakizashi paired with it. Together, they represented the samurai's authority and identity. Even in peaceful Edo towns, the sight of a samurai walking with swords commanded respect. Discipline was maintained even without war. Daily routines, martial training, and meditation remained essential. Samurai who became lazy lost honor. Honor was no longer about life or death on the battlefield. It was about reputation, competence, and social order. Economically, many samurai faced challenges. A warrior class designed for war now depended on stipends from their lords. If the economy struggled, so did they. Some samurai struggled to maintain the lifestyle expected of their status. Debt became a problem. Yet discipline and careful management helped many survive. Cultural influence of samurai expanded. They patronized arts, taught martial arts, advised lords, maintained temples and shrines. Samurai were now guardians of culture as well as order. Zen practices continued to play a role. Meditation, awareness, and calmness helped samurai navigate the complexities of administration. Decision-making, etiquette, and leadership required the same focus once used in battle. The sword may not have been drawn, but the mind remained sharp. Interestingly, peace brought new forms of conflict. Political intrigue replaced open warfare. Rivalries appeared in councils, not battlefields. Samurai had to negotiate, persuade, and sometimes manipulate. The clever samurai survived. The rigid or unadaptable did not. Martial arts evolved. Fighting techniques became more formalized. Training became as much about discipline and character as about survival. Swordsmanship schools flourished. Archery, spear fighting, and even horseback skills were preserved, but as traditions rather than necessities. Despite long peace, some samurai nostalgia lingered. Stories of past battles were shared. Tales of heroism, bravery, and strategy were retold. These stories reinforced identity. They reminded samurai of their roots. Even in calm times, the warrior spirit remained. Samurai women also played essential roles, managing households, estates, finances, and sometimes defending the family home. Peace required management as much as fighting. Strength and discipline were expected, regardless of gender. By mid-Edo period, the samurai had transformed, from warriors of chaos to pillars of stability, from fighters to administrators, from battle-focused to culture-focused. Yet the essence remained: discipline, honor, and calm strength. As the chapter closes, picture a quiet Edo street at dusk. A samurai walks slowly, swords at his side, armor long stored, polished carefully. Calligraphy brushes in his study, Zen meditation in his mind. No battles today, no shouting, no chaos. Yet the warrior remains calm and steady. And in the next chapter, we'll explore samurai families and daily life during peace, revealing how ordinary life shaped extraordinary warriors in unseen ways. For now, let the streets be quiet. Let lanterns glow softly. Let the samurai rest. History breathes gently. By the Edo period, the samurai world had shifted. Battles were rare. Wars were distant memories. Yet life as a samurai was still defined by discipline, loyalty, and responsibility. And much of that responsibility began at home. Samurai families were structured carefully. The father led the household. The mother managed it. Children learned their place. And everyone had duties. Life was organized. A typical day began early. Samurai woke with the sun. Children were taught to rise early as well. Breakfast was simple. Rice, miso soup, and pickles. Meals were eaten quietly. Conversation was calm. Discipline began at the table. Children learned from observation. Boys practiced martial arts, calligraphy, and discipline. Girls managed household affairs, finances, and sometimes weapons training for self-defense. Education was practical, not only for combat, but for life. Discipline was emphasized in all aspects. Respect for elders, obedience to parents, order in the household. Even small tasks mattered. Cleaning, folding clothes, arranging utensils. These mundane activities were training in patience and awareness. Leisure existed, but it was structured. Tea ceremonies, poetry, gardening, music, not for entertainment alone, but to cultivate focus, calm, and refinement. Women played crucial roles. They managed estates while their husbands served the Lord or trained. They educated children. They ensured the household ran smoothly. Samurai women were often strong, capable, and respected. Daily life also included training. Even without war, martial skills were maintained. Sword practice, archery, strategy exercises. This preserved readiness and discipline. Economics shaped daily life. Samurai received stipends. Some managed land. Some collected taxes. Some served in administrative roles. Financial management required organization. Poor planning could bring dishonor. Social life was formal. Samurai visited other households respectfully, attended ceremonies, observed rituals. Hierarchy and etiquette governed behavior. Small gestures carried meaning. Religion and Zen meditation remained important. Daily rituals, prayers, and meditation shaped calmness. Even in family life, awareness and patience were emphasized. Children often observed meditation sessions. Even small exposure influenced behavior for life. Meals, clothing, and housing reflected status, but simplicity was valued. Overindulgence was discouraged. Luxury without discipline weakened character. Even in comfort, a samurai maintained self-control. Education was rigorous. Reading, writing, arithmetic, history, ethics, philosophy, understanding governance and law. These skills ensured the samurai could serve effectively in administration. Archery competitions, swordsmanship demonstrations, poetry contests. Competition was friendly, but skill and reputation mattered. Stories of past battles were told at home. Lessons were shared, mistakes remembered, heroes celebrated. This reinforced identity and inspired the next generation. Family life also prepared warriors emotionally. Love, respect, and duty were intertwined. Samurai learned to balance personal feelings with social responsibility. Patience, understanding, and resilience were cultivated in daily life. Children learned through example, observing calm behavior, orderly routines, respectful interactions. These lessons shaped character more than any lecture. Even ordinary moments carried meaning. Cleaning swords carefully, polishing armor, folding garments with precision. Each act reinforced discipline. Each act trained awareness. By integrating work, training, ritual, and family, samurai life remained purposeful. Peace did not diminish identity. It shifted focus from survival to cultivation, from combat to character, from chaos to quiet mastery. Even leisure reinforced values. A stroll in a garden, arranging flowers, composing poetry. These small practices trained patience, observation, and calmness. essential traits for both governance and personal conduct. Through family and daily life, samurai continued to uphold the principles of Bushidō honor discipline. And in the next chapter, we will explore samurai education and philosophy in depth, revealing how thought, strategy, and discipline became as essential as swords and armor. Let the lanterns flicker softly. Let the warriors sleep. History lives quietly here. A well-educated samurai could navigate complex social and political systems. The brush trained the hand and the mind. Patience, precision, focus, the same qualities needed in battle were reinforced through calm, deliberate strokes. A poorly written character reflected carelessness. A precise brushstroke reflected discipline. Victories, lessons from the past informed strategy and governance. Knowledge prevented repeating errors. It refined judgment. Zen meditation complemented education. The mind was trained to focus, to notice details, to act with awareness. A calm mind could evaluate options clearly. Even complex problems became manageable. Mathematics and administration were practical skills, managing land, collecting taxes, allocating resources. A samurai was often responsible for hundreds of people. Without arithmetic and careful planning, chaos could emerge. Even ethics were taught. What decisions were honorable? What actions were just? Arts and culture mattered. Poetry, music, tea ceremonies, flower arranging, all refined patience, focus, and aesthetic awareness. Art was meditation. Art was philosophy in motion. Polite conversation, respectful gestures. Observation of hierarchy. Diplomacy required calm thinking, patience, and awareness. These skills prevented unnecessary conflict. It shaped communities. Even small daily acts became philosophical exercises. Polishing armor, organizing a room, writing a letter carefully. Each task reflected discipline, awareness, and attention to detail. Samurai schools flourished. Young warriors studied together. They practiced martial arts. They studied philosophy and literature. They meditated. Peer learning reinforced ideals. Observing elders instilled respect. Friendly competition sharpened skill. Education shaped leadership. A samurai officer needed knowledge as much as courage. Planning, logistics, and strategy required understanding history and human behavior. A sword alone could not maintain order. The mind guided action. Even during peace, philosophy remained relevant. Conflict might be rare, but challenges persisted. Political intrigue, social obligations, management of estates. A disciplined, educated, and calm mind navigated these challenges better than raw strength alone. Bushidō, Zen, Confucian thought, and practical knowledge all merged. Samurai were warriors, administrators, philosophers, and teachers. They embodied ideals in both thought and action. By adulthood, the ideal samurai had mastered multiple realms: body, disciplined, skilled, and strong; mind, educated, aware, and strategic; spirit, ethical, calm, and balanced. This combination ensured survival, effectiveness, and respect. The next chapter will explore the decline of samurai power, as modern forces and Western influence began to change Japan forever. But for now, imagine a samurai sitting quietly at his desk, brush in hand, armor stored carefully, mind clear, breathing slow, meditation and thought guiding every motion, a warrior of mind and body. And as night falls, history rests quietly here. By the late Edo period, a quiet tension began to grow. For centuries, samurai had been the ruling class. Their swords were symbols of authority. Their discipline and education shaped society. But the world around them was slowly changing. Foreign influence crept in. Western ships appeared on Japanese coasts. New technologies, firearms that were more advanced than traditional weapons, ideas that challenged old ways. Japan had been isolated for centuries. Now the world was knocking at the door. Economic pressures mounted. Stipends for samurai were fixed, yet living costs increased. Some samurai faced debt and financial stress. A warrior trained for combat and administration now needed to manage money carefully. Not all samurai adapted easily. Some clung stubbornly to tradition. Some resisted change. Some struggled to maintain authority without the battlefield as proof of power. Rigid minds faltered. Flexible minds survived. The arrival of Western military technology was striking. Cannons, rifles, and modern tactics made traditional armor and swords less effective. The katana remained symbolic, but in real combat, firearms dominated. Samurai had to confront the fact that their traditional role was becoming obsolete. The government recognized this. Reforms gradually reduced the privileges of samurai. Hierarchy became less rigid. Merit, technology, and strategy began to matter more than lineage and status. Some samurai embraced this change. Others resisted. The Meiji Restoration in 1868 was decisive. The shogunate was abolished. A new emperor centralized power. Modern armies replaced samurai forces. Swords were banned in public. A centuries-old warrior class suddenly found its social function dissolved. For many samurai, this was devastating. Honor, status, and identity were tied to the sword and service. Suddenly, these symbols lost legal and social power. Some adapted, some retired quietly, some resisted, leading small rebellions. The Satsuma Rebellion of 1877, led by Seigo Takamori, symbolized the struggle of the samurai against the New World. It was brave, tragic, and ultimately unsuccessful. Firearms and modern armies defeated traditional warriors. The era of the samurai as a ruling military class had ended. Yet decline did not erase influence. Samurai culture persisted. Discipline, honor, and etiquette continued in schools, businesses, and families. Swords may have vanished from public life, but the ideals remained. Education and philosophy helped some samurai adapt. Their training in governance, ethics, and strategy allowed them to become teachers, bureaucrats, and advisors. They found new ways to contribute to society. Even the katana survived, not as a weapon, but as art, as symbol of dedication, craftsmanship, and discipline. Swordsmiths continued to forge blades. Collectors preserved them. The warrior spirit endured quietly, like a candle flickering in the night. Bushido, once tied closely to combat, evolved. Honor, loyalty, and discipline became personal and cultural virtues. Businessmen, teachers, and ordinary citizens adopted samurai principles in new contexts. The warrior's mindset became a guiding philosophy, even without battles. Modern Japan owes much to the samurai. Their education, discipline, and moral framework shaped society. Government, arts, martial arts, and ethics bear their imprint. Though their swords no longer defined authority, their ideals quietly persisted. As this chapter closes, picture an elderly samurai walking slowly through a quiet town. Swords gone from public view, armor stored away. Meditation still practiced, wisdom quietly carried in posture, speech, and presence. The world changed, but the spirit remains. In the next chapter, we will explore the lasting legacy of the samurai, and how their values and philosophy continue to influence Japan and the world today. For now, let the streets of Meiji Japan sleep. Let the lanterns glow softly. Let the last warriors rest. History whispers quietly, even though the samurai as a warrior class disappeared over a century ago, their influence never truly faded. History remembers swords and battles, yes, but the deeper legacy is in the mind, behavior, and culture they shaped. Bushidō, the way of the warrior, became more than a battlefield code. Honor, loyalty, discipline, courage. These principles adapted to new contexts: business, education, family, and governance. Even without swords drawn, the mindset endured. In modern Japan, the samurai spirit can be found in unexpected places. Schools value discipline and respect. Businesses emphasize loyalty, diligence, and strategy. Art and literature echo samurai aesthetics and philosophy. The warrior's ideals transformed into guiding principles for society. Martial arts preserve physical skills. Kendo, judo, karate, all carry the philosophy of training, awareness, and respect. The goal is not violence, but self-improvement, focus, and calm strength. A sword may be bamboo, but the lessons remain real. Craftsmanship also carries the legacy. Katana forging, architecture, ceramics, and calligraphy all reflect samurai attention to detail, patience, and precision. Creating something excellent requires the same mindset as mastering the sword. Even in pop culture, the samurai remain iconic. Movies, books, games, and art celebrate their discipline, courage, and calm determination. Not always historically accurate, but culturally powerful. These stories inspire focus, perseverance, and integrity. The family values samurai emphasized also endure. Duty, respect, and education shape households. Children observe discipline, patience, and honor. Lessons passed down quietly, generation after generation. The samurai approach to life is a lesson in balance. Strength of body, strength of mind, strength of character. Even when battles ended, this balance guided decisions, relationships, and society. Zen, integrated into samurai life, also left a lasting mark. Awareness, meditation, and patience became part of daily life. Even outside monasteries and training halls, these practices shaped thought, behavior, and culture. The samurai also left a legacy in governance. Administration, law, and social order during the Edo period were influenced by disciplined, educated samurai. Their methods, focus, and strategies continued to influence leadership long after the swords disappeared. Discipline and calm under pressure remain central lessons. Whether navigating a busy city, running a company, or teaching a classroom, the samurai mindset endures. Awareness and patience turn challenges into manageable tasks. The aesthetic legacy of the samurai is also notable. Gardens, tea ceremonies, clothing, and art reflected calm, refinement, and mindfulness. Simplicity, balance, and respect for nature were central values still appreciated today. Even literature carries echoes of their influence. Stories of loyalty, courage, and honor continue to inspire readers worldwide. Not just heroes in battles, but individuals navigating life with integrity. The legacy is subtle, but powerful. It is not in dramatic sword fights, not in battles long ended. It is in character, thought, and behavior. Samurai trained for centuries to master themselves. Body, mind, spirit, all intertwined. Even when Japan changed, These lessons did not disappear. They adapted, quietly shaping generations. In modern life, anyone can take lessons from the samurai. Patience, discipline, focus, awareness, respect, even small daily acts, organizing, practicing, reflecting, echo the same mindset. The samurai remind us that strength is more than physical, but calm under pressure, prepared for challenges, guided by principles. These qualities endure in ways far beyond swords and armor. As this chapter closes, imagine a quiet Japanese garden at twilight. A gentle breeze moves through bamboo. Lanterns glow softly. A quiet stream reflects the sky, and somewhere, a student of history reflects silently on the lessons of centuries. The warrior spirit lives, not in battles, but in calm, disciplined, and focused life. And in the final chapter, we will reflect on the overall journey of the samurai, tying together their history, philosophy, and lasting influence. A gentle conclusion to our long story. For now, let the garden rest. Let the lanterns flicker softly. Let the lessons settle quietly in the mind. History whispers, gently and persistently. We've traveled far, from misty battlefields to quiet Edo streets, from the clash of swords to calm meditation, from the chaos of war to centuries of peace. The story of the samurai is long, layered, and quietly powerful. Samurai began as warriors, trained in skill, discipline, and survival. Facing life and death on every battlefield, they learned to act decisively, to remain calm, to respect both allies and opponents. Their swords were sharp, their minds sharper. Through the chaos of the Sengoku period, they adapted. Tactics evolved, armor changed, leadership became essential, flexibility became survival. Even amidst constant danger, samurai found ways to preserve calm and strategy. Zen Buddhism shaped their inner lives. Calmness, focus, and awareness turned warriors into thoughtful strategists. Meditation, silence, and patience became as important as the sword. They learned to master themselves before mastering others. Peace brought transformation. Under Tokugawa, samurai became administrators, educators, and cultural stewards. Their swords became symbols. Their discipline became governance. Even in calm, they remained warriors of mind, character, and principle. Strength is not measured by victories alone, but by integrity and focus. As we reflect on their journey, picture a final scene. A lone cherry blossom tree in early spring. Petals drift gently in the wind. A quiet stream flows nearby. A bamboo grove sways. And in this stillness, the spirit of centuries of samurai whispers lessons of balance, discipline, and calm strength. The battlefield is gone. The armor rests. The sword shines quietly in memory, but the mind, the heart, and the soul of the warrior live on. The samurai story is both history and philosophy. It is about adaptation, courage, and calmness. It is about learning, reflection, and discipline. It is about living with honor in every moment, whether in battle, at home, or in quiet contemplation. And so, as we close this long journey, imagine yourself sitting quietly, breathing slow, awareness calm, thoughts settled, the lessons of samurai gently guiding your own actions, patience, and choices. History is not only about the past, it is about understanding, learning, carrying wisdom forward. The samurai remind us even in chaos we can cultivate calm. Even in change, we can maintain discipline. Even in decline, we can leave a lasting legacy. So tonight, as you rest, imagine the journey of these warriors, from battlefield to garden, from meditation to governance, from youth to old age. Their story ends here, for now, but their spirit endures. And with that, the samurai journey closes. Sleep quietly, breathe calmly. Let the lessons settle softly in your mind. History, honor, and quiet strength live on. Even centuries after their swords were sheathed, samurai influence quietly shapes the world. Japan today, bustling and modern, still carries traces of samurai values. Discipline, honor, respect, and calm awareness permeate society in subtle ways. In business, samurai principles endure. Loyalty to employers, meticulous planning, and ethical conduct reflect Bushidō. Workers trained in patience, focus, and dedication continue a centuries-old mindset. Even teamwork echoes the coordinated efforts of samurai units in battle. Education also bears their mark. Japanese schools emphasize respect, responsibility, and discipline. Students learn structured routines, careful observation, and persistence. The lessons samurai pass to their children survive in classrooms today. Martial arts carry both physical skill and philosophy. Kendo, judo, aikido, and karate all teach discipline, awareness, and respect. Modern practitioners may never face an actual battlefield, but the calm strength of the samurai remains central. Arts and craftsmanship also reflect samurai influence. Katana forging, calligraphy, ceramics, and garden design show patience, precision, and balance. Attention to detail is a hallmark of samurai training. Even modern architecture and design incorporate principles of simplicity, harmony, and function. Samurai philosophy also inspires globally. Books, films, and games popularize Bushidō strategy and mindfulness. Cultural exports carry ideals of honor, discipline, and calm action worldwide. Leadership lessons endure. Samurai emphasized preparation, strategy, and ethical conduct. Modern leaders in business, politics, or personal life can learn from these principles. Decisions made with awareness, patience, and calm often succeed where impulsive actions fail. Zen meditation, central to samurai training, remains influential. Mindfulness practices, stress management, and calm focus are widely used globally. Even today, the benefits of meditation echo the centuries-old methods samurai relied on for clarity under pressure. Even pop culture celebrates the samurai spirit. Stories of discipline, courage, and calm determination inspire audiences. Movies, novels, and games highlight not just battle skill, but moral choices, strategy, and focus. The samurai remain symbols of dedication and calm strength. Families also continue the legacy. Patience, respect, responsibility, and awareness lessons once taught in Edo period homes persist across generations. Ordinary acts, cleaning, practicing, studying, reflect centuries of disciplined habit. In many ways, samurai influence is invisible but enduring. Not always in swords or battles, but in mindset, values, and approach to life. Discipline, awareness, calmness under pressure, these are timeless lessons. Whether managing a company, solving problems, or raising a family, the samurai spirit quietly guides action. Imagine a modern Tokyo office at dusk. Workers focus carefully on tasks. Decision-making is deliberate. Teamwork is coordinated. Even small acts, organizing, planning, or reflecting, echo centuries of training and philosophy. Or picture a martial arts dojo. A student bows quietly, breathes slowly, focuses attention, moves deliberately. The lesson is clear. Strength is not only physical, it is calm, disciplined, and principled. When global mindfulness practices echo the samurai tradition, awareness, patience, focus, and balance, all part of Zen-influenced samurai training, are now tools for managing stress and cultivating life skills worldwide. The samurai teach that history is not only about events, it is about principles. It is about mindset. It is about how people live, adapt, and influence the world around them. As this chapter closes, picture a quiet Japanese garden in the modern city. A gentle breeze moves through bamboo. A small stream reflects the sky. And somewhere, people practice calm, disciplined work, study, or meditation. The story of the samurai is not just past, it is present, it is ongoing. It reminds us that honor, discipline, and calm strength are timeless. The samurai's legacy endures, not just in Japan, but in every place where calm strength, discipline, and honor are valued. A lone cherry blossom petal drifts in the wind. A lantern glows softly. A quiet stream flows, and the spirit of the samurai whispers its lessons. Calm, disciplined, aware, and eternal. History sleeps peacefully. Even long after the swords have been sheathed, the samurai's lessons live on not only in history books, but in the way we live our lives today. At calm focus, discipline, patience, awareness. These were not just skills for battle. They were life skills, and they remain relevant. Let's imagine a typical morning, inspired by the samurai. Wake up early, breathe, stretch, take a moment to center your mind before the day begins. Like a young samurai preparing for training, you prepare yourself mentally before action. The concept of deliberate action is central. In Edo, Japan, a samurai polished his sword carefully, mindful of each stroke. Today, this could be reflected in simple daily tasks, making your bed, focusing on a work project. The goal isn't perfection, it's presence. Patience and calm under pressure are key lessons. Samurai faced battlefields where panic meant death. The same principles apply. Breathe, observe, act deliberately. A calm mind finds solutions more easily than a rushed one. Samurai followed strict routines. Training, study, meditation, and reflection were daily habits. Applying this today could be as simple as consistent exercise, regular study or skill building, keeping promises to yourself and others. Small disciplined actions accumulate into strength over time. Awareness of surroundings and relationships was another key skill. Samurai observed allies and opponents carefully. They noticed intentions, mood, and opportunity. In daily life, this translates to empathy, careful listening, and attention to social dynamics. Understanding others quietly and patiently prevents mistakes and builds trust. Ethical decision-making was central. Bushidō guided choices, even in morally complex situations. Modern equivalents involve integrity, honesty, and ethical conduct. Doing the right thing even when inconvenient is timeless. Balance of body, mind, and spirit remains vital. Samurai trained physically, studied mentally, and cultivated inner calm. In modern life, this could be exercise or physical activity, reading, learning, and problem-solving, meditation, journaling, or reflection. A balanced approach increases resilience and focus. The samurai also valued preparation, whether for battle or administration. Planning and foresight were essential. In daily life, this might mean organizing your day, preparing for meetings, anticipating challenges before they arise. A prepared mind handles uncertainty with grace. Resilience is another lesson. Samurai faced losses, injuries, and uncertainty regularly. They learned to recover, adapt, and persist. Modern challenges, career setbacks, personal struggles, unexpected events benefit from the same mindset. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. Adversity is a teacher. Even small rituals carry meaning. Tea ceremonies, calligraphy, or mindful meals trained awareness. You can apply this by performing simple tasks with focus and presence. Even washing dishes or making tea becomes a moment of calm reflection. The principle of continuous improvement Kaizen was central to samurai life. Every day brought training, reflection, and refinement. Modern life benefits from the same mindset. Seek small improvements, reflect on progress, adjust and grow. Leadership lessons endure as well. A samurai leader combined discipline, awareness, and empathy. Today, leadership, whether in work, family, or community, requires similar qualities: guidance through example, patience, and understanding. Balanced decisions that benefit others, not just oneself. Finally, the samurai teach us about calm presence. Even in chaos, the warrior remained aware. Even in peace, he remained disciplined. Even without swords, he lived with honor. Applying this in daily life means staying calm in conflict, acting with integrity, cultivating focus and awareness in every situation. As this chapter closes, picture yourself in a quiet room, breathing slow, observing your surroundings, performing simple tasks with care, reflecting on the day, choices, and actions. You are practicing modern samurai principles. Calm, disciplined, aware, and principled. The samurai may no longer roam battlefields, yet their philosophy lives in anyone who approaches life with discipline, patience, and awareness. Even small, quiet actions reflect centuries of wisdom. And so, as you rest tonight, remember that calm strength is timeless. Patience builds resilience. Focus enhances clarity. Integrity guides decisions. The samurai's lessons live on, quietly, gently, and powerfully. Though the samurai were rooted in Japan, their influence has crossed oceans, centuries, and cultures. From films and literature to philosophy and martial arts, the samurai spirit resonates worldwide. Hollywood and international cinema have long been fascinated by the samurai. Movies like The Last Samurai or Seven Samurai bring their discipline, honor, and courage to global audiences. Even when dramatized, the principles shine through: calm strength, loyalty, and ethical action. Audiences admire warriors who act with integrity, think strategically, and face challenges with composure. Literature also preserves a legacy. Novels and graphic novels often depict samurai navigating duty, honor, and personal struggle. Readers learn indirectly about patience, discipline, and strategic thinking. Even translated, these stories inspire reflection on life's challenges and personal values. Martial arts have taken the philosophy far beyond Japan. Kendo, judo, karate, and aikido are practiced worldwide. Students may never face a battlefield, but the lessons of focus, respect, and awareness remain central. Dojo etiquette, bowing, and mindful practice all mirror centuries of samurai tradition. Samurai aesthetics influenced art and design globally. Minimalism, balance, and harmony, qualities central to samurai culture, are evident in architecture, interior design, and even digital art. Attention to detail, patience, and refinement reflect the same principles that guided sword polishing, garden design, and calligraphy. Strategy and leadership lessons are applied internationally. Bushidō principles inspire business leaders, educators, and strategists worldwide. Preparation, ethical conduct, and calm decision-making are valuable in every culture. Even military academies study samurai history for lessons in leadership and discipline. Pop culture loves the samurai archetype. Video games, anime, and global media celebrate the disciplined warrior who balances skill, honor, and strategy. Players and audiences internalize lessons of perseverance, ethical action, and thoughtful leadership. Philosophy and mindfulness from samurai practice have global relevance. Zen meditation, focused awareness, and calm reflection influence wellness practices worldwide. The same mindset that prepared warriors for battle now helps people handle stress, make decisions, and live consciously. Even in education, samurai-inspired values appear. Discipline, responsibility, respect, and continuous improvement guide schools and institutions in many countries. Students may not know the origin, but centuries of samurai training echo in modern routines and principles. Families and communities worldwide can benefit from samurai lessons. Patience, focus, awareness, and ethical behavior remain universally applicable. A designer arranges elements with patience. All these actions echo the samurai spirit: quiet, disciplined, and principled. It is cultural. Lanterns glow in Japan. Their legacy is global. Tonight, as you rest, remember, calm strength is universal. Focus enhances clarity. The samurai lived centuries ago, yet their lessons remain strikingly relevant today. Discipline, patience, calm focus. Let's explore how modern people can apply these lessons. 1. Discipline in daily life. Samurai trained daily swordsmanship, meditation, and study. waking up consistently, completing tasks with attention to detail. Discipline shapes habits, and habits shape character. 2. Patience and calm under pressure on battlefields. Rash decisions meant death. In modern life, rash choices often lead to stress, conflict, or mistakes. Pause, observe, respond thoughtfully. Even in deadlines, arguments, or uncertainty, calm focus brings clarity. Samurai were masters of noticing details. Today, this translates to careful analysis, mindful decision-making. Bushidō emphasized honor and justice. Keep promises. Act fairly. Ethics builds trust, reputation, and personal peace. 5. Continuous improvement. The samurai practiced relentlessly. Modern applications. Improving relationships, reflecting and adjusting behavior. Samurai trained physically, mentally and spiritually. Exercise regularly, study and engage the mind, reflect, meditate, or journal. A balanced approach strengthens resilience and focus. 7. Leadership and responsibility. Samurai lead through example, combining discipline and empathy. Modern leaders can emulate this by staying composed under pressure. Leadership is not about control, it's about influence and guidance. 8. Simplicity and mindfulness. From gardens to tea ceremonies, samurai practiced simplicity and focus. Applying this today, reduce distractions. Focus on one task at a time. Appreciate small moments. Mindfulness reduces stress and sharpens clarity. 9. Adaptability. The samurai faced changing politics, peace, and technology. Adapting allowed them to survive. We can follow the same principle, learn new skills,